Join UF Hall of Famer and 14-year NFL vet Shane Matthews every weekday as he brings you all you need to know about your Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions with some of the biggest names in sports. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, or watch us live at 8 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Hey y'all, Shane and Grizzly here. We're taking a week off getting ready for football season. Seth Harp's going to host, and y'all are going to enjoy this week. As Coach Napier says, it's submarine season, and it's time to get ready for Gator football. We'll see you next week. Enjoy this week without me. Take care.
Well, good Tuesday to you. Seth Harp, Harp on Sports. Mike DiRocco sitting shotgun with us today. ESPN's Mike DiRocco covering the Jacksonville Jaguars amongst the entire National Football League. Going to get to Mike here in a second. PodUp with Matthews in the morning, coming to you from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Of course, you have a question for Mike or myself, hit us up, courtesy of the Meldon Law of Facebook question line. Meldon Law, the official injury and accident law firm partner of the Florida Gators. All right, D-Rock, it's been quite the summer for you. The Jaguars coming off, their most optimistic season, I would say, maybe since they went to the AFC Championship game in the late 90s, early 2000s, because we didn't know what we were going to have with Blake Bortles. We kind of have a glimpse of what we're getting with Trevor Lawrence. Finally have that franchise quarterback to build around before we get to the stadium issues and all of those other things. From when they lost to the Chiefs until, camp opens up here, free agency, the draft, what's life been like covering the Jaguars from playoff expectations as opposed to postseason hope?
Right. Yeah, it's totally different. You mentioned, the Blake Bortles thing in 2017, which is, they made that run to the AFC title game. But this feels so much more sustainable. And I think that's why there's so much more enthusiasm. There's so much expectation being placed on this team because they've got the quarterback. And the two of the most important things, as we've seen over the last 15, 20, 30 years of the NFL, whatever it is, you have to have the quarterback and you really have to have the head coach too. And the Jags feel like they have those two pieces with Doug Peterson, who won a Super Bowl, with the Philadelphia Eagles, who, by the way, turned Carson Wentz into an MVP candidate. If he didn't get hurt that year, he would have won the MVP. It's still mind-boggling to me that he was out there available for the Jaguars to hire. A guy who had won a Super Bowl. The guys that coaches that win Super Bowls aren't available a lot. So you add those two things together and you have a division that's not very good and, could potentially be starting 3 rookie quarterbacks in those other 3 teams at some point this season. And, you have a team that won the division last year, feels like they're on the upswing. And all of a sudden you've got expectations, you've got enthusiasm around here that we haven't seen even since, I came to Jacksonville in 1988. I've been here the whole time the Jags were around. This feels a lot like, 96, 97, 98, 99, in that era there when the expectations were that this team was going to get to a Super Bowl. It still didn't feel like that after 2017 because of what I mentioned, but this feels different. I mean, it feels like the whole city is ready for this to just sort of explode.
Getting the Evan Ingram deal done, Mike. He was on a franchise tag, getting a 3-year deal, upwards in the mid $30 million range. It was one of these things that they're going to be chasing their tail on him for years and years. Financially, cap-wise, because I know, you got 2 more years before you have to do Lawrence, right? Josh Allen, need to make a decision on Josh Allen coming up. What's Evan Ingram do for the Josh Allen situation?
Well, not only the Josh Allen situation, but the Calvin Ridley situation too, because that's someone that they could have used the franchise tag on next year as well. So getting Ingram in the fold, now your choice if you're the Jaguars is, Josh Allen, if he somehow has a 10, 12, 13 sack season and you don't want to let him go and you can't come up with any kind of a long-term deal, boom, you use him and you try and negotiate and get something done with Ridley. So it does help them from that standpoint there. I don't know what we're going to get out of Josh Allen. I think Josh Allen is who he is. I think he's a very, very solid pass rusher. He doesn't finish a ton. If you look, the advanced metrics that the NFL uses, NFL Next Gen Stats, he is among the league leaders in pressuring the quarterback and causing disruptions, but he just doesn't finish. So I don't know that he's ever going to be a 12, 13 sack guy. But having Ingram's deal done, it's a 3-year deal. I think he's making like a little over $13 million a year, 13.6 or $7 million a year. It's pretty reasonable for a guy that, they felt that we're going to pay, $11 million this past year on the franchise tag. So helps him out cap wise. You mentioned Trevor Lawrence. I think that deal's going to get done after this season.
Okay.
I think you get him. Look, here's the thing. You got Burrow coming. You got Herbert coming. Okay. Lamar's at $55 million a year. So Burrow and Herbert are both going to top that. See if you can get Trevor done maybe before one of those guys gets done, and you don't have to pay 60. Maybe you can get him for 58 a year. But that going rate is going to be in that 58 to 60 a year. And, it's better to get him done as early as possible, I think. And then you kind of have the roadmap for how you can work your salary cap going forward.
He is Mike DiRocco, ESPN's Mike DiRocco. Seth Harp with you here. PodUp with Matthews in the morning. Brought to you in part by Silverback Concrete. Silverback Concrete, family-led team of heavy concrete specialists that build commercial structures with unrivaled quality. Silverback Concrete, you stand on it, we stand by it. Speaking of concrete, going to take a lot of new concrete for that shiny new $2 billion, 1.3 for this and $400 million for that. I know it's a $2 billion complex. I also know, and I've always given, Mark Lamping and management credit there for, community outreach, community support, opening up the door saying, hey, look, here's what's behind the curtain. This is what we want to do. They've been doing this for, even the 5 years I was in Jacksonville, working there and covering the team with you guys, Mike. So now I look at this and everybody else is doing it. The Bills are doing it. The Oakland didn't do it. So goodbye Raiders. And it's one of these things. If you do not build a new stadium or at least $1 billion renovation, franchises are going to leave. So with it's been a month since the stadium unveiled, Stadium of the Future. Where do we sit right now, Mike, when it comes to the $2 billion expansion or stadium renovation plan in Jacksonville?
Yeah, it was complicated. Well, complicated is not the right word, but there's the new mayor elected, Donna Deegan, and she took office July 1st. So you knew that was going to kind of slow some things down. The Jaguars' hope is that by March, that there is a framework of a deal in place, at least, maybe, something even more concrete, and that they're able to say, okay, we've come up with this deal and we can go ahead and start construction after the 25 season. October is an important month for this because the Jaguars have to make a determination at that point whether they'll have to keep investing about $1 million per the Jaguars each month going forward, starting in October, to sort of just kind of keep things up going in terms of the design of the stadium and what the infrastructure costs and all these. I'm not 100% sure on where all that million goes, but according to them, they need to make a decision whether they need to keep investing in the design and the continued planning around the stadium. If they feel like there's been some progress, then obviously they're going to do that. I fully expect that to happen. But, it's going to be a little bit because Mayor Deegan has just presented her first budget. So they've had some initial meetings with Mayor Deegan and the Jaguars with Mark Lamping and Shad Khan. So, the process is probably going to be a little slower than everybody thought or everybody hoped. But, within the next 2 or 3 months, we should have a little bit of movement.
It's interesting, Mike, because I want to get to Gainesville's impact on this and vis-a-vis with University of Florida talking about a $500-600 million renovation at the Swamp as well. The fact that this franchise has played a couple games in London, or at least tried to a couple years ago before COVID hit. And now you have a shiny $2 billion stadium on the dais. Will the London series continue with the $2 billion stadium? It'd be kind of a tough sell, isn't it? With 8 and 9 game regular seasons now at home to have, hey, here, build us this $2 billion thing. By the way, you're still going to go to London for 2 years. So we want you to give all this money, but you don't get to play in it every year. What's the talk on the London series continuing with the new build?
Yeah, that's not going to go away.
Okay.
That's not going to go away. The Shad Khan is committed to, if the league will allow, this is, I think, the second year of a 3-year deal. To play an annual home game in London. They're playing 2 this year, but one's a road game, back-to-back weeks. The second week's a road game. But that's going to be part of this franchise's future going forward. They make for lack of a better term, crap ton of money on that game. I mean, it's 90,000 people in there. They keep all the revenue. They run the game. They keep the ticket revenue. It's completely a money maker for them. So that is not going to go away. So if the city makes it contingent, this deal, which I think the total renovation cost is like $1.4 billion. If they want to do it if they want to build a new stadium, it would have to be about 2. And I can't see the city being willing to just chunk in an extra 600-700 million, however it works out. But if that gets done, they're going to be able to play their. I don't see two home games in London as a possibility, but the Jaguars definitely want that one game there. It's a big, significant chunk of their local revenue. They won't turn it. They won't turn it down. And if the city comes to them and says, "Hey, look, we'll do this, but there's no London game ever, that might be one of those non-negotiable stumbling blocks that keeps the deal from getting done.
Mike, if it doesn't get done, what happens?
They're gone.
Really?
I mean, there's no. I don't see a scenario where Shad Khan says the heck with it and goes and buys some land down there in St. Johns County, right next to the World Golf Village or what have you, and builds his own stadium. Doesn't work. There are other teams, other cities that would probably be willing to step up and take an NFL franchise. I think we both know, everyone should know that the NFL really doesn't. I shouldn't say the NFL. There are a lot of owners in the league that do not feel like there should be a franchise in Jacksonville. They're one of the smallest market teams in the league. They don't bring in a ton of money to the league. Certainly not winning games over the last 15 years has been a big part of that, obviously. But if we get to March, April, May, June, and the city just says, we can't come up with this money, we're not going to do it, throws up its hands, then I think I would be very surprised if this franchise isn't out of here by 26, 27. I know people go, where are they going to go? Well, you know what? They could go to Oakland. They could negotiate with the city of Oakland, which just lost a team. They could go to St. Louis. And I know that the St. Louis had some stadium issues with their deal with Stan Kroenke, but Kroenke, I think, as we've seen, wanted out and was not negotiating in good faith there. And the city actually won a lawsuit against Stan Kroenke, and he's paying the city of St. Louis a boatload of money. So that's a possibility. People mentioned Toronto. Toronto's a possibility. San Antonio is another city. But if they don't get this stadium deal done, the Jaguars are on the record saying, look, this is not tenable. This stadium, look, I know people, we sometimes see when we're in the media, obviously, we see the bowels of the stadium, right? That people don't. People sit in the stadium on Sunday and you know what? The concourses aren't as wide as they could be. The bathrooms stink, but hey, there's pools there. It's nice. We got the big video boards, whatever. That stadium's a dump, guys. It's a dump. I mean, stop up your toilet and then walk by it, and that's what it smells like in the bowels of that stadium underneath. Okay, it stinks. The sewer backs, it's awful. So I mean, it's a dump. It needs to be redone. But if they can't come to any deal, I don't think we'll see them finish the lease here, and the lease here ends after the 29th season.
I think it's funny, Mike, because I recall the media room there was built 25 years before the Gator Bowl was built, and they just built the Everbank Stadium or Alltel Stadium around the old media room from the Gator Bowl. It just, and that you're right. And you can sit there and say, well, it doesn't matter. All that matters is what happens on the outside. Well, not if the sewage is and the smells stinking up the locker room. And players, look, it's a luxury business now for everyone. It's no longer about, I'm going to pop down my $50 bill and have a good day with the kids. No. It's about luxury boxes and suites and seat licenses and revenue sharing. It's about all of those things now. And when did it become a business? About 30 years ago, gang. We're just late to the punch here. So it's one of these things.
Here's the thing too. Like you can't lose money as an NFL owner. You just can't. Okay. That is the bottom line. But show me a guy who's worth billions of dollars that doesn't want to make as much money as possible. So yes, the Jaguars make money. Certainly 100%. Can't lose money as an NFL owner. You just can't. But those guys become billionaires because they want to make as much money as possible. They want to monetize everything to the maximum limit. And that's what partly this is about. And let's be honest, they need a new stadium. The big issue here is, you mentioned Tennessee, Buffalo's getting a new stadium. They get state money to help defray some of those costs. We don't get that here in Florida. That's not going to happen. If you remember, the Rays wanted some money, I think it was last year. And DeSantis nixed it in his budget. So there's not going to be any state money to kind of help defray the cost, which kind of makes it a little bit more of an issue here locally. But the bottom line is it needs to be done. It's not a great stadium. It really isn't.
I'd say a couple things, but technically he's my boss. So stage right. Yeah, question for Mike. Fire away. Courtesy of Mel DeLaw, the official injury and accident law firm partner of the Florida Gators. A Facebook Live. Buck writes in, Ridley was the missing piece in Jacksonville when it comes to their offense. You agree?
Yeah, because he gives them the alpha, the number one guy, and the guy that other teams. Last year that offense really took off in the second half of the season. The first half it was kind of hit and miss. Christian Kirk, very good year. Evan Ingram, very good years. Zay Jones, they all set career years in terms of catches and yards. Great. No, as good as they all were, they didn't scare anybody. Calvin Ridley scares people. So you have to game plan now. If you're a defensive coordinator, you've got to keep Calvin Ridley from hurting you. And that should open a world of things up for those other guys. Calvin Ridley, he reminded us this multiple times in his press conference in the spring after he got cleared. Hey, I caught almost 1,400 yards worth of passes in 2020 on a broken foot. So what is he going to do when he's healthy? He still thinks, hey, I'm a 1,400-yard receiver. I think that number's a little high with all the other options they have, but he is their number one, and he is going to make Trevor Lawrence even better, and he's going to open things up for everybody else. This should be the highest scoring offense in franchise history. And I know there's an extra game, so we'll go per game. This should be a team that averages close to 30 points a game with Ridley in the fold.
Yeah, and if you look at everybody, I think I may be overstepping my bounds, or maybe because with Seattle, this is a team that should win the division. If you had to give me all 6 divisions or all 8 divisions in the NFL and said, who's most likely to win their division? I'd pick them, the Jaguars, over the Chiefs, just because of Herbert and Russell Wilson eventually is going to figure it out there. And I know the Chiefs are good, but the Chiefs' schedule is brutal. I looked at the Jags schedule. Is this true, Mike?
It's not good. I mean, it's not hard. It's easy. No, it's pretty easy.
They do not play back-to-back winning or playoff quarterbacks all year long from last year. And of the 4 quarterbacks that made the playoffs last year and won a game, 3 of them are at home or in London.
Yeah. Look, the AFC South is not very good. They should win the AFC South. They play the NFC South, which is a mess in and of itself. It's the worst division in the NFC. Now, they do play Lamar Jackson. They do play Joe Burrow. They do play Patrick Mahomes. So those are the 3 most important games. If they're a legitimate contender in the AFC, you got to win. 2 of those games are at home. So you better win that Monday night game against Burrow, and you better win the Sunday night game against Lamar Jackson. So, actually, I take that back. All 3 of those games are at home because Kansas City week 2 is the home opener. So those are the 3 toughest games they have. but the rest of that schedule really is not that daunting. So they should be a 10-win team with no problem. They should win that division, no problem.
19-0.
Here's the funny thing. People around here are like 12, 13, 14 wins, and I'm like,
a lot.
They're the best team in that division, okay? But if you look at what happened at the second half of last season, they won all those games. They went 7-2 in the second half. So very impressive. But they beat Zach Wilson and 3 quarterbacks the Jets pulled out of the stands, okay? They beat Josh Dobbs in the season finale to win the division. And, oh, by the way, they were losing that game late in the fourth quarter until a sack strip fumble that scored the winning touchdown. They spotted the Raiders, a 17-point first half lead, and had to rally to win that game. They beat the Cowboys in overtime after a pass was deflected into Rayshon Jenkins' hands, and he returns it for a touchdown. 27-0 they were down against the Chargers. And, all of a sudden, Brandon Staley decides, what, we'll just, we'll score 3 points in the second half. I mean, it was just a lot of things had to go right their way. So I think they are very good. I think they're a 10, 11 win team. But to sit there and say, hey, they should be a team that competes for the number 1 seed in the AFC is a little much for me at this point.
2 more for you. We were back when we were talking about the stadium issue and what they're going to do. Different possibilities have obviously been floated from Orlando, who's about ready to sink in what, $600, $700, $800 million into that stadium, the Citrus Bowl. People mentioned Tallahassee, Daytona International Speedway. Gang, you thought you baked at the bank. Wait till you see what you're going to do there at Daytona. But then you have Gainesville, who, Mike, you've done this, the double. When I lived in Jacksonville, drive to Gainesville Saturday night, Gators play, go home, get up 7 a.m. into the bank to watch the Jags or whatever, and all of a sudden you've had 2 football games in a 16-hour stretch, and you're writing away. You're like, oh my God, my brain's fried. Right. So I wonder, with Daytona and Tallahassee and Orlando, what seems to be the hiccup or the question mark with the stadium that's 71 miles away?
I covered the Gators. A lot of your listeners may know, may not, but I covered the Gators from 2000 to 2012. Okay. So I lived in Middleburg. I did that drive. It's a fine drive, no issue. There are very few stadiums. I can only think of 2 that I've been in, current stadiums, because, San Diego Stadium was just awful, that are worse than the Jaguar Stadium. Okay. And one is in Washington and the other one's in Gainesville. That's a dump. I'm really sorry, Florida fans. I covered that team for 13 years. It's a dump. That stadium's a dump. We all know it. It needs renovating. But from that standpoint, that to me is the best option for them to go straight down to Gainesville and play there. The thing that people say is, well, Daytona's easier. Daytona's better. It's a straighter drive. Sure is. But the facilities are not there. And it's not just the seating. It's locker rooms. It's medical facilities. It's where's the TV going to be? Where are the cameras going to be? Where are the announcers going to be? Where are you going to try and sell some, suite tickets or club seat tickets? Where are those people going to be? You need a place that's ready for football. And that's Orlando, which is a dump in and of itself. And in not a great neighborhood. And oh, by the way, I covered a couple of Pro Bowls there. When it rains, it's grass, mud lots all around the stadium. That's a nightmare. Gainesville is the best option, and that's where they should go. And I'm hoping that that's where they should go, where they will go. Daytona's making a huge push. The Speedway is making a huge push, but they're going to have to put a bunch of money into that facility to kind of make sure it's ready. If you're looking for the easiest, smartest solution, it's get on 301 and use the bypass if you have to, but let's get down to Gainesville and play some games there. Because if I have to drive to Orlando 16 times over 2 years, 20 times over 2 years, I'm going to be very, very cranky.
And Scott Strickland talking about, sinking $500 million into this thing too, renovating, and even talk of building a new stadium on the golf course, which anytime you try to get somebody on the record with that, Mike, you get the Heisman. No. I don't know where that rumor came from, but I know they explored it. So the thing I have for if they build new suites, what they're talking about on the student end and remodeling this before the Jaguar deal gets done, I mean that by then the Jags should be in prime Super Bowl contention mode. Is this fan base going to be okay with the AFC divisional round at Daytona International Speedway or the AFC championship game in Gainesville? How's that work mentally?
No, they are the fans. The fans are not going to want that. They're not going to like that. But here's the thing: they can do the stadium renovation over 2 years and then play the home games in Gainesville or Orlando or wherever it is. Okay, or you can add $190 million to the price tag and do it over 4 years and have parts of the stadium closed. To be honest with you, because of what you're talking about, both Donna Deegan and the other mayoral candidate were on the record like, hey, I don't want this team playing home games anywhere else but Jacksonville. That's why there's a large part of me that thinks that even though it's $200 million more expensive, that the city is going to opt to go ahead and do that renovation. They'll try and trim some costs on some other stuff with the stadium. Hey, do we need all those trees? Hey, do we need all the lights and that? We don't need a psychedelic light show there. That's what I think they're going to do. They're going to try and do it over a 4-year period, cut some of the cost elsewhere because they don't want any home games going anywhere else. To be honest with you, the smartest, most economical thing is to do it in the 2 years and play the games in Gainesville. But you're right. I mean, Lawrence, Peterson, the Super Bowl window will open and will be open for a while. It's always open when, we have the franchise quarterback. And I think Jags fans are not going to want to do that. But you know what? You can't make everybody happy. And when you're writing checks for $1.4 billion, you make yourself happy. That's the only way to do it.
Be interesting to see what happens. The Jags, we got 2 weeks, Mike, before they kick off? Less than that.
Well, they report today. Rookies reported Friday. Vets report today. First practice is Wednesday. So we're ready to go.
Good stuff. Mike DiRocco, ESPN Mike DiRocco with us here on PodUp with Matthews in the morning, courtesy of Campus USA Bank, or Campus USA Credit Union, I should say. Put some star power in your work, in your financial life with Campus USA Credit Union, sponsor of This Day in Sports. This Day in Sports, ready for Mike? Ready for this? 45 years ago, what happened?
How
about 45. That? Impossible. It's a baseball question.
Give me what year would that be? Because my math is bad.
78.
78?
National League.
See. National League. I got nothing.
Pete Rose broke the National League record hitting streak. He got up to 44 games before it was all said and done. But Pete Rose hit the National League record for hitting streaks.
That's actually pretty cool. I like it.
July 25th, Slim Pickens, baby.
Yeah,
there's not, you got one sport going on.
July, when you sports talk and in July, you're just digging. You're digging and significant events. I'm with you. By the way, let me just say this: I loved covering the University of Florida. I really did. I had a great time. I was there, during the urban years. I was there for the end of Spurrier, Zook, beginning of Muschamp, those national titles, Tebow. So please don't misunderstand me. Just because I said that the stadium's a dump doesn't mean I did not enjoy my time there. It was one of the, covered Billy basketball. It was the best time I've had in my career covering those teams. So don't get mad at me just because I said the stadium's a dump.
Hey, baby, I run it almost every other day in there. I work right across the street. It's amazing what you see in there at 7 o'clock on a Wednesday night.
It's amazing what you see in there when you haven't been pre-gaming and partying for 4 hours in the parking lots either.
Hey man, houses get old. They need renovated. I doubt anybody's home looks the same as it did 20 years ago inside. I bet you put new carpeting or new paint or something, right? And these are billion-dollar cathedrals. It's just the way it works now. Mike, man, appreciate it as always. Thanks for swinging by. Anytime I fill in, I'll try to get you in here. If you have some availability, we really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You got Edgar Thompson waiting in the wings. Seth Harp, Mike DiRocco. This is PodUp with Matthews in the morning.
We want to take this moment to thank our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official injury and accident law attorneys of the Florida Gators. Peaceland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Campus USA Credit Union. QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Dave & Buster's, eat, drink, play, and watch. Our gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Celebration Point Town Center, Silverback Concrete Co., Rue's Ogre State Farm Insurance, Doreen Wibby, Realtor Caldwell Banker, MM Parish. Our touchdown sponsors are Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteak, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Aver and Smith, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Silver Cube Billiards and Sports Bar. If you're interested in promoting your business on the show, call Freddie at 352-284-3733. If you like what we're doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Hi there, this is head ball coach Steve Spurrier, and I'm here with my wife Jerry and our good friend Sherry Houston, the executive director of the Ronald McDonald House Charities of North Central Florida. We're thrilled to announce that the 2-year anniversary of our restaurant, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, is coming up on August 14th. Last year, we had so much fun celebrating with everybody that we're doing it bigger and better this year. We're hosting a special dinner and celebration that will include a chef's choice of premium buffet or your favorite Spurrier Gridiron Grill menu, including a filet mignon carving station, shrimp and grits, short rib risotto, wonderful seafood options, and many dessert options also.
Like my famous chocolate chip cookies.
Proceeds being donated to the local Ronald McDonald House.
Thrilled to once again partner with Coach Jerry and the Spurrier Gridiron team to raise funds for the Ronald McDonald House, benefiting families and children experiencing medical emergencies.
Spurrier's Gridiron Grill will be donating 11% of all of our money from food and 66% of drink sales to the Ronald McDonald House.
Go to spurriers.com right now and reserve a ticket before they sell out.
We'll have wonderful food, special guests, and a limited edition of the 2nd year anniversary collector's coins, as well as prizes like a dinner with me and Jerry. We couldn't have become one of the busiest and most successful restaurants in the Southeast without your support. So we want to celebrate with the most important people of our team, and that's you.
I want to celebrate with some of those cookies. Do you have any of those?
Sure do. Right here for you.
Oh, thank you.
Continuing on, PodUp with Matthews in the morning. I am Seth Harp, Harp on Sports. That deliciously handsome man next to me, the co-pilot on this journey of PodUp with Matthews in the morning. He is Edgar Thompson of the Orlando Sentinel. Quick reminder with PodUp with Matthews in the morning. If you're consuming us, following for the first time, follow, like on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. YouTube and Twitter as well, PodUp in the morning. You can listen on 37 digital platforms. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and many more. And Edgar swings by today, courtesy of Celebration Point, where the Gators come to celebrate. Premium brands like Visor's Rooftop Bar, Bass Pro Shops, Dave & Buster's, Fat Tuesdays, Starbucks, and of course, Steve Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, hottest restaurant in Florida and in the heart of Gator Nation. Edgar Thompson, just getting back to Orlando. He stayed in Nashville for
Gainesville.
Oh, I thought you stayed in Nashville and hung out with Taylor Swift and Jason Aldean and the rest of the country music factory following SEC Media Days. That's a no-go?
I told Taylor I was tied up, but no, I'm in Gainesville, man. I'm right here. I'm like a mile from the swamp.
You're that close today.
I am. That's where I live.
Yeah. So I thought you okay. Oh, sorry, I thought you were back in Orlando today. My bad.
No, I'd never have lived in Orlando in my life. That's the confusion that's created by where I work. But yes, no, I live in Gainesville and have off and on for more than 20 years. I like Gainesville.
So
do not want to live in Orlando.
So am I to take it then you are the reason for the construction problems on University Avenue?
I would tell you, man, that's a nightmare. But I will say this, and the Nashville traffic situation and construction is unbelievable. They're like building on top of building. And, which is a good sign, I guess, economically for the country, that building's happening and infrastructure is being addressed. But it's tough getting around Nashville, man.
Oh.
And it's might be the fastest growing city in the country, I think.
Jacksonville, Nashville, even Tampa, Orlando. Good gracious. Okay. I think I get that done. I know this has nothing to do with what we're about ready to talk about.
That's fine.
They're tearing up the whole entire University Avenue. It's one lane for essentially 10 blocks. This is going to be done by the Tennessee game? They're doing water pipes and sewage and all sorts of things.
I don't have any idea. And the timing of these things never seems to work. But it's tough here, with the weather. I mean, things get delayed and whatnot. But yeah, speaking of building, though, on to the Gators, right?
Yeah. They report Sunday. I know you're excited.
Get back to the grind. I need to.
I am, last year with Anthony Richardson and Utah and Billy Napier, there was some excitement and some buzz, got a new coach, scared money don't make money. This year, to me, Edgar, it's more like, to me, it's when you go on a date and you've been there for about 15 minutes, you're like, uh-oh, I don't know what this is going to be the rest of the night. This could get ugly here in a hurry. I look at the team and some talent, but you were at SEC Media Days.
Mm-hmm.
First time ever that the Florida Gators didn't have a first or second teamer on offense, defense, or special teams. Picked to finish 5th, which I can kind of get that in the East. Vegas has them at 5.5 wins. As we start to kick off the season, at least camp here on Sunday, Edgar, what's the state of this Gator football program from a guy's perspective that's covered it for a couple decades?
I mean, it's to be determined. It's definitely you're going in with more questions than usual, but we've been here before with other programs, and those, in most cases, didn't turn out great. I'm not saying that's where we're headed here. No idea. But you get into these situations where it's the rebuild. Billy, though, seems to have some advantages. His organizational structure, his ability to staff, the commitment of the school, the athletic department, in terms of, letting him build this robust support staff that other programs have had have had for building over the course of a decade or more. What was it? Nick Saban, when Billy got there in 2011, as an analyst coming from Clemson, so we're talking 10 plus years ago, was like, okay, this is why they're so good, because it was massive staff, facilities, all this stuff the Gators are finally starting to put in place. So that's the advantages he has compared with the McElwain, Muschamp, Mullen, all these other regimes that didn't really get it done ultimately. Had little successes, all of them. 2 SECs for McElwain. Mullen had 2 very good teams and a third one that was really had a lot of potential till it fell off at the end. And Muschamp did have the 11-win season people forget about. So if there'd been a playoff, then the Gators would have been in it. Where this is headed, it might be heading a little more slowly. We might not have that year 2 bump, right? Spurrier had a year 2 bump. Meyer won a national title in year 2, 11 wins for Muschamp, 11 wins for Dan. McElwain, another SEC East title, though it probably wasn't as good a year as the first one. I guess what I'm saying, that year 2 bump might not come. It might be a year whatever bump. We're not sure. I mean, next year's schedule is brutal. Could be a freshman quarterback. This is going to be a slower build potentially. I think they're building the right way. Like you say, no talent. It's a lot of undetermined talent. I don't know that there is great talent, but I'm not saying there isn't some talent on this roster. He's brought in tons of transfers. He's building this thing in a different way. He's building it from the inside out, the old Parcells way. You remember Bill Parcells, build from the inside out. Billy's doing that. And if you look at the recruiting, I mean, there's a lot of interior point of attack type guys on defense, which they just haven't been getting. Dan Mullen let that languish big time. When you really look at those recruiting classes, they were missing inside linebackers, defensive interior linemen. Other than Javon Dexter, nothing. So, and he played too much and was raw. So, we'll see. I mean, but it's going to take some time. And I'm not like trying to pump sunshine here. I voted him 5th. I couldn't I didn't vote anyone. No, I did actually vote some guys. I voted Pearsall, ETN, gave a little love to Marshall and Crawshaw, the punter. And there's one other guy I'm forgetting. Sorry, Princely Umamelan. And a few of those guys made third team. And, any of those guys could pop. I mean, Princely in this defense could be big. I mean, ETN, I think, could be a star. Jason Marshall, we're waiting to see him play like a 5-star. He's certainly got the size and skills. So there's things to be optimistic about. I mean, it's not all like dark cloud, where's this program going? Oh my God, it's going to be just an awful year. Now, on the record, win-loss, we might evaluate it like, tepid season, but it could still be building towards something better.
I think it's interesting that, Georgia picked to win the East, makes sense. Bama picked to win the West. I get it. You can make a case for LSU, but LSU has to go to Alabama. So that makes sense. But both those teams picked to win their respective divisions. Georgia picked to win the conference. But neither team had a quarterback that first, second, or third, or honorable mention, none of them. So seldom do you see teams pick to win their divisions and win a conference, but yet they don't have a quarterback. Neither team's quarterback makes it into the first, second, third team for whatever it may be, Edgar. So I thought that was pretty fascinating, and a testament to how much talent both teams still just stockpile at other positions.
Well, Georgia's been, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think it was 22 to like 4 or 5 stars from 17 to 22. And then they probably added 5 compared to Florida. I don't know if Florida had 4. It's like 2 maybe. But in Alabama, this current class is 12 or something. Now, the 5 stars might have grown a little bit beyond 30, still not more than 35, 40 players. So these teams are just getting the cream of the crop, these programs. And LSU's right behind them, and Ohio State. But I'll say this, Billy is starting for 2024, at least, that class is looking pretty strong at this point. Interesting little thing yesterday, too. Miles Graham, the linebacker, top 50 guy, high 4-star, is coming to Gainesville Buchholz. And I'm definitely going to go catch a game with them. And they open like on the 18th of August, unbelievably. I mean, less 3 weeks or whatever. But
right.
Hey, it's right. There's no football going on to watch. I might go watch that game. But he's Ernest Graham's kid, the former Gator running back who played with the Bucs for a while. My first year in the beat, 2020, he rushed for 1,000, Ernest. I tell you, man, I remember meeting Ernest. He's like 5'9", maybe. My God, he had biceps like you never seen in your life, and this guy was put together. So his kid, good genes, knows the commitment required. That's often, some of the thing. I mean, these kids, they get here and it's like, it's a whole nother world of regimen, time management. So he's going to come in, and he's among a lot of guys in that class who are intriguing, but that's getting ahead. I mean, we're focused on 2023. And there are many question marks and many pieces and things that need to fall in place.
He is Edgar Thompson of the Orlando Sentinel. Seth Harp filling in for Shane Matthews today. PodUp with Matthews in the morning. If you have a question for us, fire away, courtesy of Meldon Law Facebook Live. Meldon Law's Facebook Live questions brought to you by Meldon Law, the only official injury and accident law firm partner of the Florida Gators. Also, Titan MRI. Need to thank Titan MRI. I give you the Titan MRI text line. It's 352-353-7465. That goes to Shane's phone. So fire away, gang. You can text Shane, who's on vacation. Text him what you want. I know better than to give you guys my phone number. Let's see here. David says Billy's going to have 5 years regardless of record, barring a moral clause. He's going to processes. But like what he's seen so far, Greg Steele saying Seth promoting firing Billy. I never said that. Greg, quit being a clown. Come on, Peter Pan, grow up. I'm a big fan of Billy, and I think Billy's doing it Billy's rebuilding it. You mentioned the Bill Parcells method, Edgar. Billy's building this in a realistic rebuilding mantra. Deion comes into Colorado, blows out 60 players. It's like, okay, we're going to start this. It's like, oh, you got to have some stability, try to build a house with a bad foundation. Watch what happens. It's going to collapse on you. I look at this a lot like I look at Florida State. I'm always going to make this comparison. What Mike Norvell did, Edgar, at Florida State is a realistic rebuild for the talent that they had. Terrible first year, knocked on the door of 500 the second year. Third year gets to 8 wins. And now as he hits his fourth year, people are talking maybe a double-digit win season with the
Is
class.
this year 4 for Norvell?
Yeah. And
they won like 10 last year, didn't they?
Great year, didn't they? Yeah, 8 or 9. Did they get the bowl game? I can't remember if they won their bowl game or not. But that's a realistic rebuild. And I think that's what Billy Napier is doing, especially with the recruiting class that he's coming with next year. Edgar, I'll ask you this then, in terms of talent and this fan base and the schedule and what you see at Utah on that Thursday night. How important, because last year they win the game against, let me preface this, they win the game against Utah at home last year. And what do we get, Edgar? Anthony Richardson just may win this Heisman. It's like, whoa, cowboy. We got one lap into this race. Let's slow down. And 9-10 win season, Gator football's back. And then Kentucky. Okay, then status quo. So how much stock should we put into a win at Salt Lake City, a loss? How much stock should we put into whatever week one's going to give us?
Probably not too much, but you're talking about like Greg, you're funny. You're like, I love your radio style where you're like Peter Pan grow up. It's funny, but you're being a little harsh. He's right though. He's getting 5 years, Billy. No matter what, he's getting to year 5. He is. But here's my whole theory on Billy is by year 4, you need to see them pushing for a playoff spot. But again, that's way off in the distance. By year 4, we're going to get a real gauge of this program because it really, and I was a Dan fan, Mullen supporter, and thought that he's a very good coach, which he is. Good coach. Is he a good program builder? No. And we're seeing some of that, or a lot of that. In terms of the Utah game, last year, it was almost like a double-edged sword or whatever you want to say. It was, you win that game, expectations go through the roof. You don't beat another ranked team in 5 tries, I believe it was, 5 more ranked teams. So, and you lose to Vanderbilt too for the first time since 1988 in Nashville. So it really, you get momentum, lose it, get momentum, lose it. They had one stretch where they had some momentum, which was South Carolina, and that was after the A&M win. Depleted A&M roster, but still a good win. And then you go to Vandy and lose. So that was the season in a nutshell, really. You have momentum, you lose it. Utah, you have it, you lose it. To Kentucky, there might have been another spell where they had momentum and lost another game. I mean, it's just like they couldn't get it and keep it. So if they beat Utah, they get McNeese State, I think, the next week, but then you got Tennessee here. That's the game I'm looking at, Tennessee. Whatever happens at Utah, Tennessee's the game. You can beat them. You almost beat them last year, even though I never really felt the Gators were going to win that game. Anthony had a great game, might have been his best game, and you got a shot. I mean, it was a Hail Mary and all that, but they did push Tennessee pretty good, and you get them here at the Swamp. It's an SEC game. They're kind of new at quarterback with Joe Milton. I think Heupel's an offensive whiz, clearly. So we'll see. I mean, it's hard to keep up scoring with that team, but we'll see what Tennessee's got. I think they're going to be good, but their defense was pretty porous last year. Tennessee's. It's not going to be great this year. It's probably going to be better, you would think. It'll build. So, yeah, Utah, hey, great. It would be great momentum, and you beat McNeese State. You're 2-0, you get Tennessee. But lose Utah, you can still salvage with Tennessee, and then you go to Kentucky. I think, didn't that 2 weeks later, you get Charlotte and then at Kentucky. I mean, you get Utah, Tennessee at Kentucky in September. You get 5 games, 3 tough ones right out of the gate. the schedule is pretty unrelenting. I think then you get Vanderbilt at South Carolina. Then you get the bye week, you get Georgia, Arkansas, LSU. It just doesn't let up much. But that's SEC football. But Utah would be a nice win. It's a possible win. Cam Rising might not play. Keithy, the tight end who led up the Gators. What's the guy's name's eluding me. What was the tight end that was so good that went high first round pick?
Yeah.
Who was he?
He went before Notre Dame's tight end, didn't he? Michael Mayer. I mean, he had a heck of a
Yes, Kincaid. I kept thinking, yes. Okay, exactly. Dalton Kincaid didn't even really do much against the Gators, but Keithy did. And he's been hurt too. So Rising and Keithy are both coming off like knee injuries, serious ones. So that's to the Gators' favor a little bit. But you're playing at 4,000 feet. Altitude's potentially a little bit of an issue. You're playing in a very good home environment against a good program. Interesting game for sure.
I think elevation. It's gonna. Yeah, look, it's a big test, and look, if you're Billy Napier, there's two realms of thought on this, right, Edgar? People like, and I don't. People like, Valdosta State out of the gate, so they can railroad somebody 45-15. The alumni can pat each other on the back in the luxury suites, and you walk out and go, "Oh, so and so look good, so and so look good." So, and you're like, "What did we accomplish?" Congratulations, like me dunking on a 6-foot rim with my 6-year-old nephew. Or you go to Utah last year, or you go out there and you win with a rookie or brand new quarterback and all these question marks. You're going to find out. Look, you're not national championship mode. You're in let's find out what we got mode. I love tests like this out of the gate. I do, especially for big boy programs. You want to rebuild in Vandy, you want to start with a team like that. Kentucky, you want to start with it, fine. But if you're Florida, I love high risk, high reward. I love games like this.
McNeese State, Charlotte.
Yeah.
Those games are no fun for the players, the fans, the media, anyone.
Yep.
Now you got to play one of them. Scott Strickland has done an incredible job shifting the approach of this program from what it used to be, which was a lot of cupcakes, not traveling out of the state to play football games. And I give him a lot of credit for that and giving the fans a product, that they're paying for. Next year's schedule, man, besides being brutal in the SEC, I mean, they really got dealt a tough schedule. We don't need to go through it all, but it's a tough one. And they also are playing UCF, they're playing Miami, and they're playing Florida State. So that schedule's in Sanford. I mean, that's a legit schedule when you look at it. And going to Texas, LSU coming here, Texas A&M coming here, Ole Miss coming here, going to Tennessee. I mean, it's Kentucky coming here, Mississippi State on the road, which sounds like, we win that. They don't win at Mississippi State very often. If they do, it's close. So there's a lot of meat on that schedule next year. And credit to Scott there. It's not putting Billy in the greatest position, but, if you're going to win titles and you're going to compete for titles, which the Gators need to get back on track doing under him, or it's not going to work out, you got to beat teams.
Edgar Thompson, Orlando Sentinel, Seth Harp on Sports with you here on this Tuesday. PodUp with Matthews in the morning, brought to you in part by Ruse State Farm Insurance, team of dedicated insurance professionals ready to help your life and family head in the right direction with the right insurance options for you and your loved ones. Visit ograinsurance.com. Give them a call at 352-240-1779. That's 240-1779. Also, there we go. So that's all right. That's one other thing. Meldon Law, Facebook questions. John says he thinks the altitude is overblown. Nobody ever talks about the altitude when the teams go play the Broncos. John, Ryan Clark of the Steelers almost died because of it. It does matter. I just don't know how much it matters.
It plays a minor role, probably a little early in the game. But acclimatizing, I lived in Albuquerque for years. I remember you first get there and I'm 20 years old walking up the stairs. You're like, hold on. Like you notice it for sure, but these are world-class athletes,
Yes.
more or less. They're going to be fine. But it will be kind of a shock to the system, I think. It's more, execution. And we didn't even really touch on it. I know time's running short, but so much is going to fall on Graham Mertz, I think, this year. We haven't talked about him. What's he going to bring that's different than Anthony? Good. And what's he not going to bring that Anthony could do bad? And escapability, making a huge play out of nowhere, whether it's a run at Texas A&M, the 81-yarder against LSU, the run against Utah. He's not going to do those. But is he going to be able to sustain drives that Anthony was unable to do because of inaccurate throws, misreads, or not checking to the right thing? We'll see. I mean, that's the big question. I'm not saying Graham Mertz has to be great, but he has to be efficient, not turn over the ball like he did at Wisconsin. And because he did have a lot of interceptions and sloppy play at times. So everyone's intrigued by what's going to happen there.
All right, I've got 3 rapid fire questions for you, Edgar. Don't think, just react.
Okay.
Okay?
I guess.
Graham Mertz starts every game for Florida at quarterback this year.
Ooh. Probably not.
He's
durable, though. He's pretty durable, but you get banged up, man, in the SEC.
The starting quarterback for the Florida Gators in December will be the starting quarterback for the Florida Gators next September.
I think that's false. Graham Mertz, he has a year. He could play a COVID year, but I tell you, DJ Lagway, man, if he's everything made up, they're going to try to get him under center, man, fast.
Open-ended question. This is the SEC as a whole. We know Alabama and Georgia are the top 2 teams in the SEC. Who are the next 2 best teams?
LSU, Brian Kelly, I thought was a great hire. He's got the first team All-SEC quarterback. Look, Tennessee, I got some blowback for Tennessee on the pod, Mark Long. We were praising Tennessee. Josh Heupel, I'm not going to go crazy and say he's a Steve Spurrier or whatever of the SEC now, but man, that guy can call plays, man. He knows how to play with tempo. He knows how to back off the gas. He keeps, even at UCF when they didn't have great teams, he kept teams guessing. He's really good, and this is an offensive sport more and more and more. They led the nation in scoring and yards, second yards per play. I get it. They had a 25-year-old quarterback. They had Jalen Hyatt. They had some great pieces, but we will see what they can do. You got to say those are the 4 best right now.
Edgar Thompson, Orlando Sentinel, Seth Harp on Sports with you here on this Tuesday. Again, camp opening up this Sunday. Edgar's going to be covering it really, really quick. Edgar, people want to follow you, check out your work. We need to get out of here. Where do they find you?
OS Gators. I put my work up there. I need to start getting a little more active on Twitter again. I've been kind of languishing. The Elon Musk changes.
X.
I don't even know what that is. I need to catch up.
Terminology. It's no longer. Is it Xer? I don't know. All right, Edgar, as always, man, appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Seth. Great seeing you, man.
Thompson, Seth Harp. Thank you. Appreciate everybody checking in for Zach Rothrock, Phil, and everybody back there at the studio. Thank you very much. This has been PodUp with Matthews in the morning.